Hello and thank you for listening in. Today we're going to be walking through a demonstration of the Hero widget. With the Hero widget, you can configure a larger size banner to display an image with shapes behind it if wanted, general text, a title, and 3 calls to actions. This is a great way to inform users why they may be on a certain page and provide them with important links within that area. This is especially helpful if you have a landing page and need to provide users with a blurb on why they're here, as well as where they most likely will need to go from there. Within the Hero configuration, there are multiple easy to configure tabs that we will walk through. The first tab is the Preview tab. Once you click to expand, it will provide you a live preview of what your Hero widget will look like on the front end. That way, if you're making any changes, you don't have to make them, save the page, go to look at it, and come back to edit further. It can all be done from here. Within the Hero Configuration tab, this is where you're actually setting up some of the basics. So what image or graphic do you want to display above those shapes on the right-hand side? What do you want that welcome title field to be, or the title that displays up in the top? As well as that paragraph field that displays right under the title, right? So if we're looking at our preview one more time, this is your title here, this is your paragraph field, and here's the image or graphic that you could choose to link to. The image or graphic could really be any shape that you would like, so you have full control over what it is. I'll leave the preview field open in case we need to refer to it in a later section. Now let's take a look at the Call to Actions tab. You can have up to 3 calls to actions. You can have just 1, 2, or none. It's really up to you and what you prefer. You can see here that I have my 2 call to actions displaying. Modify my settings, which is the title displaying here, as well as view all my groups. I do have each area linked to somewhere else and where I want the users to go. Again, you don't need to have calls to actions, but you can if you'd like to. The theme is where you really have full control over all of the elements that are displaying within your Hero. You can choose to inherit the theme from your site, so those basic site colors is what would be inherited. In this case, I'm not inheriting the theme, so I have full control over how I want it to display. In this case, I'm choosing to show rectangles. As you can see here, I have rectangles behind my image, and my image is displaying as a rectangle. If I have rectangles, I could choose to show the boxes shadows or not. So this is what they look like without the shadows, and this is what they look like with the shadows. If I choose to select rectangles, all of these options will still remain the same, but we'll look at the bottom options in just a second. With the title text color, what do I want this text color to be? I can enter any color here with the hexadecimal code. The same with that paragraph text color. What color do I want that text to be? The border radius can be controlled for each individual call to action. You can see that if I put it all the way up, it's going to make it very round. Even if I go to 100, it'll make it even more round. If I go back to 0, it's more of a square, but I like a nice 4 with a little bit of rounding, but not too much. Again, this can be done for each individual call to action. Then you have theming and control over the box color as well as text color of the calls to actions. What would you like each box color to be? In this case, I have them all as the same green color, but you could have them as different colors. The same with the text color. You could see that I have it set as white. So if I scroll up here, you could see there's that green color as well as my white text. For boxes, now this is stuff specific to those boxes that we see here in the image. The image box height and box weight is referring to this front image where you uploaded your image. What do you want that height and weight to be? I could make it smaller, right? So I could go down and you could see that it'll adjust accordingly. But in this case, I want to have it all the way up. With a box, maybe I don't want it to be full 90-degree angles on the corners. I could have some rectangle or box roundness. For the image box, you can see that there are multiple settings configured down here in order to control those boxes, such as your image box height, weight, and roundness. That controls this front box here in the image that you chose to display, or graphic, whatever it may be. In this case, it's set all the way to the highest height and weight. I could lower it and really make those dimensions whatever I want. As you can see here, it does get reflected as such. Again, but I'm going to turn them back up. you also have control over the roundness of the box. So maybe you don't want full 90-degree angles here and you want to have some rounded corner. In this case, I chose the rounded corners to be large, but I could set them to be medium, small, or none, right? So if I set them to be none, it will be a true box. You have those same options for the shapes or rectangles behind the image. So the top rectangle, which is this rectangle on the top, you can control, as well as the bottom rectangle or bottom shape. If I scroll back down, you could see again, once again, that I can control the height and the weight of that shape as desired. I also can set the shape color with a hexadecimal value. Again, I can say and determine if I want there to be any roundness on that top rectangle shape or not. And then the same with the bottom rectangle, so I could set the height and weight to be whatever I want, as well as the shape color and the rectangle roundness. Now let's take a second, because in this past example we chose rectangles as our mode, but maybe we want to choose bubbles. Bubbles is another shape type within the hero. With bubbles, once again, you can inherit the theme, but in this case I'm not. You could choose to show those shapes or boxes, shadows, and you can also choose if you'd like to display the circles behind an image. Typically when I do the circle one, I display it behind the image. Once again, you do have the same configuration options towards the top of the title text color, the paragraph text color, as well as those call to action border radiuses and those box and text colors. Similar to how the squares or rectangles, the shapes were laid out, you do have control over the size of the image bubble, the top bubble, and bottom bubble. Right, so here's your image bubble, this is your top bubble, and that's your bottom bubble. Once again, I can go ahead and slide it to be according to how I'd like, or what size I would like. In this case, I have it set at 198. I could put this one down much lower, and you see it does reflect accordingly. I once again also have the choice to set the shape colors for the bubbles behind the image, right? So that top shape color, that top bubble color, what do I want it to be, using a hexadecimal code, as well as the bottom shape color. Let's say you like how the image looks, but you don't really like the shapes behind it. Something you could do is you could set the top shape color and bottom shape color to the color of your background. So in this case, white. Now let's say maybe you like how this image looks, but you really don't like how the shapes behind it look. Something you can do, and this is true for the rectangles or squares as well, is you can just turn those radiuses, or for the rectangles, the height and the weight, all the way down to 0, and those shapes are gone. So now it's more of a standalone image or graphic on the side. Just a side note too, GIFs can be supported within this area. So you could have an animated graphic here as well. Now let's look at the font section. Within the font section, you have control over the title font, so the Welcome to Your Magnolia dashboard, the paragraph, as well as the call to actions. Each one supports basic font, Google font, and custom font. If it is custom font, it does have to be one of the compatible file types. But for basic font and Google font, you could select a font type, and then you're allowed to select the font weight, style, as well as size. This can be done for the title, paragraph, and calls to actions, really giving you full flexibility to best align with your brand's needs and guidelines. Now let's take a look at the advanced settings. Here you could set the widget title if you'd like a title to display above the widget. Typically we don't display a widget title, we just choose to hide it in this case. You also can enter any CSS class name as desired to best align with your brand's needs. Thank you so much for listening in. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.